Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness.
This is episode 82.
We hope our territorial acknowledgement improves allyship with Indigenous people within a reconciliation process. We're on the Haldeman Tract, located on the traditional territories of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We acknowledge the presence and traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Wilson. I'm here with Elise. And Elise, I just wanted to know what's on your mind today.
Hey, Julie. So I was actually looking at some articles in the National Post, and I came across this article about sunsets. And it's called, "We Should All Be Watching More Sunsets for the Good of Our Mental Health."
Oh, I agree with that statement. 100%.
Sunsets are the greatest. There's just something so calming about them.
I think I've talked in the past about I guess in vacation in general, but my sister-in-law and brother-in-law have a place in Mexico in Acapulco. And I tell you, these sunsets are just incredible. And I don't know how many sunset pictures I have now, but overlooking the bay in Acapulco. And I know some people are probably questioning, what? Acapulco? Why are you going there? But my brother-in-law has family there. He's from there. And Acapulco sits in this bay. But just the sunsets over the water are just breathtaking. And it's really interesting, depending on the time of year you go, just watching the sun, because it'll, at certain times of the year, it'll be right over the ocean, like right in the middle of the bay. And then depending on the month, throughout the year, you'll see the sun. So you'll see the movement move over top of the mountains. And it's
wow.
Yeah.
So mountains, water, sunset. That sounds incredible.
It is. But we're here to talk about sunsets and the benefit of that. But there's that awe factor, right?
And that's exactly what this study was about. Sunsets are among one of the most beautiful fleeting weather phenomenon in the day. So that awe is what helps to increase our mental health, which is incredible. So just seeing something so beautiful and awe-inspiring really helps us to boost our mental health.
They also go into talking about memories, right? Mm-hmm. And those positive memories that once that's ingrained, and sunsets, right? They happen all the time. And if you happen to capture one and you've got that positive awe feeling, so the next time you see one and it just triggers that feeling, that positive energy, right? Not to mention the fact that you're out in nature, which again is another, just a booster, right? For your mental health. Being in nature, but then that awe-inspiring aspect about it. And I'm going to go off on this tangent here now about The Good Doctor, because I was watching The Good Doctor and they had this episode, and I'm going to have to go do a little digging to see if this is actual science, but it makes sense that on The Good Doctor, and there was this patient who suffered brain trauma, and there was very little awareness, very little going on with this individual. And one of the head neurosurgeons wheels her out and puts her in front of a sunset. So on the roof of the hospital, puts her in front of a sunset. And one of the other doctors says, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
He was saying, well, there's studies that show that the brain is taking this in and absorbing it and releasing certain chemicals. And like I said, I'm going to have to look in to see if it's actually true. But I just thought, oh, that's really interesting, because then you and I were chit-chatting about this article, and I thought, okay, so maybe there is something about this, and just what the brain does and what the brain takes in, because there's so many vibrant colors on sunsets. I don't know about you, but I always get like the goosebumps sometimes when you're looking at a sunset. And how quickly the sun sets too, right? I love watching that. Just once the sun gets closer and closer to the earth, just how quickly it happens.
Yes. Yeah. And it's fleeting, but also just so beautiful to enjoy and so interesting.
Yeah.
And I know the article talks a lot about how we are more disconnected with nature in our Western culture. So taking time to connect with nature with something so beautiful is just so great for our mental health.
So important, right? A lot of us, we get fixated, we're on our computer, we're working, and you just really need to take those few minutes, the end of the day, a pause outside, just breathing deep and watching the colors in the sky. I have a couple of teenage boys, and you wouldn't think that, oh, sunsets and boys, but more often than not, when you get the colors in the sky, they'll be like, oh, Mom, you should really see the sky tonight, right? So there is something about sunsets, and probably even, and I think in this article they mentioned sunrises as well, but there's something about a calming effect and a peace. I find sunsets is more like that uplifting and energy, and sunsets is that calming reassurance type feeling that it gives
Definitely. Yes, I know I've seen a lot of sunsets, sunrises in my travels. There are always places you go that you hear, oh, this has the best sunsets, or these have the best sunrises. So I know I've experienced some sunsets in, let's say, Greece over the water, and that's been beautiful, like Santorini.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I've also experienced some great sunrises. I know in Cambodia, there's a series of temples called Angkor Wat, and you can see the sunrise there. And I do think there's a different kind of energy with the sunrise versus the sunset. And I think there is a difference in the colors. I think
yes,
the deeper colors I've experienced are usually at sunsets.
You have been in so many different, I can't begin to imagine the number of sunrises and sunsets, because you have traveled quite a bit. And maybe that's a session we should talk about travel sometime and all of your adventures. I'd like to hear more. I know you've talked quite a bit on the show about some of your travels, but maybe we could pick different aspects like sunrises and sunsets.
Of course. I would love that. I know, though, for me, I think my favorite sunset is here in Canada at Sauble Beach, which is on Lake Huron. And I think it's the memory association, like the article talks about, because I remember going as a kid. We would go every night to see the sunset over the water. We'd maybe go for a dip in the water, feed the birds. And I think it's those positive experiences that just bring you a little joy.
I love that. That is such a happy memory. Love it.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. Today's interview is in the category of mental wellness. We recently spoke to Stefanie Costi about what a toxic workplace felt like to her. And today we'll chat about how she found her way out of that environment. Welcome back, Stefanie.
Hello, thank you for having me again.
Well, it's great to be talking to you again. Stefanie Costi is a practicing lawyer in commercial law. She advocates for student lawyers and graduates, but deep down her true passion is empowering people involved in toxic workplaces to speak up, and in educating organizations on the lasting impacts of harboring bullies in their ranks. So Stefanie, when we last spoke, you described the toxic work situation you found yourself in, and frankly, it was a bit hard to hear. I was glad to hear that you found your way out. And when we left off, you were feeling the negative effects. You had left, weren't sure what to do next. Sometimes the experience of being in that environment makes a person feel like can't escape. And in your case, one day you realized you had to quit, even though you didn't have a plan. So what was the first step in your way out after that?
I took some time off work, and I feel like that was the most powerful thing that I could have done. The reason why I say that is when you go through workplace trauma, if you leave a job and then go straight into another one, you don't take time to really recharge, reboot, and build up your confidence. And the problem with doing that is the trauma that you faced in your previous job goes into into your current role. I took off probably about 6 weeks there. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell my family that I wasn't working at the time. because I felt like I just needed space. I needed time. I put on my work clothes every single day. I left the house like I was going to work. I was kind of just keeping my head above water. I went to the gym every single day. But the most amazing thing that came out in that intervening period between when I was working and when I found another role was I founded a organization called Initio. And we do a range of things. The arm that I'm in charge of, I have created this arm of the business that empowers victims of workplace bullying to speak up or to vote with their feet. So we help a victim, they get in touch with us about bullying in the workplace, and we coach them on how to deal with it. Sometimes that can involve speaking up. Sometimes that can involve just leaving the workplace. Because I like to say sometimes speaking up is not in some people's character. Some people just want to move on, go and find another job, whatever.
I think that's probably true too, especially for people who are feeling beaten up by the whole process.
Yeah.
You know, maybe don't have the energy to fight back, but they need to leave. Yeah.
But there's also this thing called workplace mediation. So we set up meetings between their boss and them, and we sit there as support people for those people. And those people feel more empowered having us there with their boss to say what's really on their mind. They may leave, they may stay in the role, whatever, it's up to them. But we really love helping people that are just struggling at work. The other thing that we do at Initio is we educate organisations on the lasting effects of harbouring bullies in their ranks. So we go in with education programs to tell them what bullying in the workplace looks like, the psychological abuse, the verbal abuse, the silent tactics like the undermining and the exclusion, the physical abuse, the sexual harassment, the queen bee syndrome, female rivalry. We go in and we really say, okay, this is what it is. And we educate from the ground up, from a legal support staff level all the way up to a partner level. So we go in, we do that. We give them strategies on how they can eliminate bullying in the workplace and how they can deal with bullying complaints that come through the ranks in a trauma-informed way. Because we don't want people to have to go to work and deal with this type of stuff anymore, because I've dealt with it and I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. People shouldn't have to go to work only to pay a psychologist $350 for a day at work. It's not okay, and it's about time that things do change. So yeah, Initio was probably the most powerful thing that I did after I got bullied. And also I just took time to exercise and took time to really ask myself questions about whether I wanted to be a lawyer or whether I wanted something else for my career. I discovered that I wanted to be a lawyer, but then I also researched some firms that aligned with my values, because I feel like a lot of people, they go for a job and they think, I've got to meet that job. Well, no, you don't. I feel like the job's got to align with your values. So whatever your values are, it could be money, could be career progression, could be a work-life balance, could be the experience you get, could be whatever, the mentoring. You need a job that's going to align with those values, because if you don't get a job that aligns with your values and they value more the billable unit over the culture, there's going to be a real frustration for you in that workplace, and it's not going to be a great place for you to work. So yeah, I just took time out pretty much, and I did things that were going to build back my confidence.
Okay, let me ask you a little bit about that time off period. I'm just trying to get it in my mind. So for example, after you left, how long was it before you started Initio? And how long was it before you got your first job? Were they happening at the same time or?
No. So I took about 4 weeks kind of process what had happened.
And can I just ask you on that, did you take 4 weeks because you said, I want to take 4 weeks, or did you just keep processing until it felt right?
I kept processing it until it felt right.
Okay.
I felt at the 4-week mark, I started applying for jobs. I mean, the job application process takes a little while. As I was processing, I thought about it, and I had it on my heart to start Initio probably about 6 weeks after I had left that job. I didn't know quite how I would do it because obviously, it takes a little bit of guts, and I wanted to make sure that I went through with it at a time where my confidence was back up to the level that it should be. So I think Initio came probably 3 months after I left the job. I don't believe in starting things when you're in a hole yourself, because as the saying goes, when you're on an aeroplane and the aeroplane is plunging to a halt, you've got to put the mask on yourself before you put it on another person. You can't help another person when you're sinking yourself. So I waited until I was ready to make a difference before I started making a difference.
What I find interesting is, I'm guessing that at one part after you left the job, you just wondered if this was what the legal career looked like if all jobs just were terrible. But it sounds like at a certain point, it came to you that no, I was in an unusual situation. That is not how law is supposed to be. Doesn't have to be like that in a workplace. You know what? I'm sure there's a lot of great places, and that's, you start thinking about Initio. And so, you're going to start thinking about how things should work and should look. So it sounds like maybe at a certain point you thought, I can get back out there and start applying, and I'm going to find a place that's a good fit and won't have the same experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when I did that soul searching, how I mentioned how I did some soul searching and I really questioned whether I should be a lawyer or whether I should go and do something else. I really thought about the firm, if I wanted to be a lawyer, that I wanted to work in and what it would look like. And I imagined it and I manifested it for myself. So I wrote a list of what it should say. So for me, it was a work-life balance. For me, it had to have an amazing culture. A lot of people say there must be perks, like days off and things like that. For me, that didn't matter. Mine was there had to be respect to everybody in the workplace, regardless of whether they were the janitor all the way up to a partner of a law firm. I wanted to make sure that I was working in a place where I could be proud of and where I felt safe and secure going in there and making a difference. The other thing was I wanted to work in a place where it wasn't just the rainmaker that was going to progress, but it's also the people that, are great at, networking and all of that type of stuff, because that's what I was good at. I'm good at the business development stuff as well. A lot of people are good at doing the grunt work of being a lawyer, flipping the contracts and doing all of that type of stuff. I'm more of a people person. So I needed to find a job that was a lot like that. The other thing for me that was very, very important was mentoring and guidance. As a young lawyer, you need to be a sponge, pretty much. You need to just soak up all the knowledge that you can. And if you don't have superiors that are going to invest their time and their effort in you, you're not going to grow and your career is going to be stunted. So as I said, I manifested it out and I just thought about, okay, so if I write it on a page, say, you know what, I'm going to apply for these jobs. And instead of finding out whether the job was for me, I figured out whether I wanted to do that role. So there were other roles that I went for where in the interview I thought, oh, the responsibilities and the culture doesn't sound that crash hot. I don't want to be there. So instead of being so desperate to get any role, I started thinking about what role would be perfect for me and my personality. And it took a bit longer to find a role that did that. I mean, anyone can get a job, anyone. But the right job takes time, and we can get so impatient after we've gone to law school and all of that type of stuff. But find the perfect job for you. It might not be a top tier law firm. It might be in the DA's office, or it might be in, government, or it could be working at a barrister's chambers. Who cares? The perfect job for you isn't going to be the perfect job for everyone else. For example, my job, other people might think it's the most boring thing ever if they want to work in government. That's fine, but it's the right job for me.
There's so many things that you just said are just so amazing. One thing I just want to mention is a lot of people talk about work-life balance and finding the right fit for a job. What I really appreciate about what you said is you listed some very practical things, like things we can actually wrap our heads around as working towards that work-life balance, which I really try and do myself. It's one thing to say work-life balance, but what do you actually mean by that? What are the activities? And you've done a really good job at listing some really important ones for a good work-life balance. Where you are now, you're so much further ahead. You've had the experience and can look back on it, and you've thought a lot about it. Somebody's in your shoes. So the shoes you were in while things were going bad, they're there right now. And if you could go back and tell yourself something when you were at that stage, what might you say to yourself that might hopefully break you out of it a bit earlier?
Whilst the bullying experiences are happening to you, keep a diary. Now, a lot of people tell you not to do that, but at first you feel like in an experience like that you're going crazy. That
it can't be as bad as you think, or...
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're being gaslit half the time about, you're imagining things, it's not your reality, blah, 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 blah. However, keep a diary at home, and every day put the things that happen to you on that day in it, because you never know when you're going to need that information. And your memory could be a bit sketchy at times. Like, I don't even remember what I had to eat yesterday. But if you have a diary, a hard copy diary, write in it, say, okay, I did this, keep it not in the office, at home, people, at home, and keep a diary. It means that you'll know that you're not imagining things, and that is your reality, and that is what happened. And a lot of people that, are thinking about doing workplace claims and all of that type of stuff, it can come in handy, because if it's really, really bad, for example, sexual harassment and whatever, and it turns into criminal conduct, you will need that information. But for me, I didn't need to do any of that, because, I just voted with my feet and I just wanted to get out of there. But it also was a useful guide for me to know that how I felt wasn't crazy. And I still have that diary up until this day, just so I know in my heart of hearts that what I was going through wasn't a figment of my imagination.
I can see that, first of all, you're also not in the best frame of mind. So that's probably affecting your memory too, right? All these things are happening and you're tired and maybe depressed, and you probably start to doubt yourself. It can't be that bad. Come on. But then if you actually read the stuff that you'd gone through, that must be a sobering kind of water in the face experience. We're like, no, this is happening. I got to make a break.
Exactly. And you'd be surprised years after, because it's been years after my experience now. And I don't know, probably once every few months, the diary will fall out of the closet and I'll see what's going on. And I'm thinking in my head, wow, you really survived that. Well done, you.
Well done. Yes.
You've done it. You know what? That could have brought you to your knees, but you, my friend, are still running through life. Like it is the most sobering experience, sure, but it also is a reminder of how brave and how strong you are. So that would be my one tip. Keep a diary, because I'm not saying go after people and sue people that, I've done this behavior to you. It can be really expensive, can be a lot of time, all of that type of stuff. But just do it so you know that you're not going crazy.
Yeah. And now we find out years later, it'll make you think, you know what? I have some resilience, like as bad as that experience was, and I don't take anything great from it, but I did have resilience. We are at the end again of our interview. Again, it went very fast. Before I turn to the question I ask every guest, though, you've said a lot of great things about Initio and the things that you do, and you've given a lot of great perspective on how you came through. I don't want to shut you down. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about today before we wrap up?
No, I just wanted to say just how great it's been to be on this podcast and to be asked about these things, because it's so important that we speak about it. And if anyone's ever feeling alone in their struggle, reach out to us on LinkedIn or whatever, because you're not alone. There are people that have gone through workplace bullying. Have a scroll through my LinkedIn post. There are thousands of people that have said, right, that's happened to me, or I know of someone that's had that experience. So don't feel like you're alone, and always, always remember that life at work does not define you. You are a person and you have valuable things to offer.
Well, thank you so much. It's a real passion of mine to work on this podcast. And one of the most challenging things for me is I really do think it's important for people who have experienced challenging situations to share their stories, because I really believe it'll break down stigma. And I think it's working. I think finally in the last few years, more people are talking and the stigma is starting to disappear. But I also think it's really important to only have people on the show who are comfortable, because I don't want to, traumatize somebody by talking about something. And so it really is a challenge to find people who are willing to talk, but also who are comfortable to talk. And that's why I'm so grateful that you joined us today. Here we are at the end. And like you know from the last time, we ask every guest the same question in the context where we all have many areas of wellness in our life, but not enough time to focus on all of them at any given time. It's our mini wellness check-in. Stefanie, are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life? And if so, can you think of even one thing you can do to foster wellness in that area?
Something that really fills my cup is reading. And I'm not talking reading cases, reading, client documents, all of that type of stuff, because that's what I do in my everyday life at work. But I mean just reading, inspirational stories and reading just for fun. I'm a writer as well as a lawyer, obviously, and it really makes you a better writer and gets your creative juices flowing and improves how revitalized your mind is if you're doing things that, fill your cup. And reading really fills my cup. I learn a lot. I feel like my vocabulary expands. I feel like you learn so much just by reading the stories of other people. And I feel like I wish I could read more fiction. I wish I could read more inspirational stories, and I wish I had that amount of time. And I've made a promise to myself for the last few months of this year to actually read a book every 2 weeks, and even if it's like a page a night or, a chapter a night or whatever, because I feel like it allows my mind to switch off. And I'm not very good at that. I don't think any lawyer is, because we're type A personalities and, we're go
Yes.
people. We don't know how to recharge. But I find that reading helps me recharge and makes me feel, just transports my mind to another realm that it doesn't get to when you're dealing with client cases and stress and work. Yeah. Work.
It's a popular one. Quite a few people have said they want to get back into reading, and me too. Couple quick points. It sounds too like you like fiction and possibly inspirational stories, maybe like autobiographies where things went well. Another cool thing that happened to us recently is my wife got into listening to books, like audiobooks. I personally love to read a hardcover, like a hard copy book. That's just my thing. That's my jam. But she was listening to lots of audiobooks, but she was using a service, and then she decided not to use the service anymore. And then our daughter said, hey, just get a library card. And we found out that now, so we got a library card at our local library, you get free audiobooks. It's crazy. They just like appear on your phone, and they're there for the 2 or 3 weeks, whatever the period is. And you listen to all these amazing things, and then it disappears and you get the next one. And it's fantastic. She just spent 58 hours listening to Les Mis for free. So there's your way to
That's
listen to.
awesome.
Yes.
Why buy a book?
So check out
When
your
you
local library.
Absolutely. There's a fun fact for everyone. I didn't even know that existed.
Me neither, not
gonna
until like a week ago.
Wow. Well, fun fact, right? I'm going to actually see if that's available in Australia because I spend so much money in books and they just all sit on my dresser. So
Okay, well, thank you so much. You've given us so much time with 2 interviews and such an important topic and sharing yourself. So thank you so much, Stefanie. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of The Adventures of the Starving Artist. This week is cool. It's still not quite routine, but I'm okay with that. I like everything being a little bit different every day. Not too different, because it's easy to get overwhelmed, but different enough that it keeps me on my toes. I think I chose the right field for that. This week, still lots of music, and of course, some of the new responsibilities with the change in my job position. But one of the other cool hats I'm wearing this week is that of speechwriter. I've been honored to be asked to be the best man at one of my best friend's weddings, coming up in October. And writing a speech for the best man speech is not something I've ever had to do before. Public speaking's not something I'm worried about at all. Seeing as I perform in front of people all the time, I don't get nerves or anything like that. Where I am a little bit concerned is just I've never done it before, so I've been checking out other best man speeches, watching on YouTube. I'm learning a lot of what not to do, as well as good ideas on what I could borrow and adapt to my own stuff. So that's been a cool project to take on here. In addition, I've been asked tonight, after teaching all day, to jump on another musician's gig out here in Ottawa and play a couple tunes. And I'm excited because it's a venue I've never played before, so with any luck, I'll make a good impression and hopefully land a couple bookings of my own. Yeah, pretty busy week. Teaching, speech writing, putting on the best man hat, and jumping on gigs. I've got another one of my own gigs coming up this weekend too, so it's not like I get a breather here anytime soon. But that's okay. It's all good stuff that I like doing, and stuff that I'm new to, so what's not to love? That's all I've got for you today. Quick little update, I'm trying something new, and trying to get my foot in the door in somewhere new. We'll see how it all goes. Thanks very much for listening, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
We don't have any ads yet, and that's on purpose. We're sharing stories and experiences to give back, to inspire, and get people talking about wellness. 2 quick points. My personality is to present things in a progression. Once I cover a point, I often don't go back to it. If you want to see the whole picture about wellness I'm trying to paint, listen to all our episodes from the start. Second, it's costly to put out a podcast. You can help me defray that cost by buying my book, Accidentally Well by John Webster. It's available on Amazon, Indigo, or anywhere you buy books online. Please consider buying a copy.
Move that body like we're meant to do.
It's Sheila and John, and I have an article from, I think it's like a news agency. I'm not sure. It's DNUYZ. And the article is People Who Do Strength Training Live Longer and Better. And it was published August 24th, 2022. I pulled it a long time ago. It should have inspired me a long time ago. But I kept resisting doing strength training. And the thing is, I did start. I've been whining about it for a while. Oh, I gotta. And wow, what a huge difference. So I've definitely been doing aerobic training regularly for a long period of time. And I feel pretty good. But I did strength training and I'm starting really slow. So the weights I'm doing are a lot lower than normal. I can't believe how great I feel in such a short window. And so this is a really timely article to talk about.
Exactly. And I agree with a lot of things that are in this article. But I would like to say that it's really good that you started with lower weights, because I think it's important that you do weights, but you don't need to overextend yourself, and you can really injure yourself with weights. So starting slow and steady.
I totally agree. And actually at one part of the article, I highlighted something that talked about when you're starting out, kind of do that.
Mm-hmm.
But they also say, and this is a really important point to me too. I used to work with somebody who was a bodybuilder.
Mm-hmm.
So he not only, before I did any weightlifting at all, he not only gave me some good programs to try and some good exercises to try.
Mm-hmm.
In each case, he showed me, like, just even though we were in the office, important points to remember about technique.
Right.
And he noted that if you don't do the technique right, you could easily hurt yourself.
Correct.
And so what I often do is when I do a routine, I watch videos to see how to do the exercise correctly. And I really take my time, and if I have music or TV on, I make sure that whatever I'm doing, I'm not going to be distracted and, like, say, turn my head halfway through.
Mm-hmm. True.
And this article said, if you're uncertain about exercises, it recommends seeking out expert advice through an exercise class or consulting with a personal trainer.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because when I'm doing weights, I often close my eyes because I really like to focus on the muscles that I'm trying to focus on, whatever. And I like to try and really focus in that area. And I find it easier if I close my eyes and just do it and push and feel those muscles, really work those muscles. So if it's my back or my deltoids or my arms or, my squats or whatever, I really like to focus on the muscle that I'm trying to work.
I do that too. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah.
A lot of times I use the glutes and the is it the hamstrings at the back?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that kind of system. So the ones, for example, when you do deadlifts and squats,
Mm-hmm.
I really notice a huge difference if I'm actually thinking about those muscles when I do the exercise. Not only do I think I work them harder, but I think it helps me keep my technique better.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So it's a great idea.
So the one thing I thought this article was really interesting for me is obviously they're saying that if you can do your cardio for an hour to 3 hours a week, as well as strength training for an hour to 3 hours a week, it really helps lengthen your life, the longevity of your lifetime, and makes you healthier throughout that. So that when you're older, you will be able to be more mobile, which is really cool. But I was surprised that it said 10 to 20% drop in the risk of mortality, which makes sense, cardiovascular disease, which makes sense, but it also says cancer.
Yeah,
that surprised me.
I think just generally being healthy in so many different ways gives you a better chance. Now, some cancer, I'm sure, are caused by factors that have nothing to do with working out. But I know, for example, being overweight increases your chance for cancer. Interesting. So I think for some cancers, hopefully, being in better shape reduces the risk. A different section of the article I pulled out, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it here. It talked about heart disease and cancer and diabetes and other stuff. And if you do 1 hour of moderate to vigorous aerobic exercise a week, that had a 15% lower mortality risk. And it was 27% lower for those who did 3 hours a week. But this is the cool part. And I've always thought that this is true. I just didn't know. And they say in the article too that the association between strength training and health is still something they're trying to better understand.
Exactly.
They said for those who took part in a 1 to 2 strength training sessions per week, they had an even lower risk of mortality. So it dropped a full 40% lower than those who didn't exercise at all. And this is roughly a difference between a non-smoker and someone with a half a pack a day habit. How crazy is that?
How crazy is that? That never occurred to me that it would be that beneficial. So that is why we're talking about this for Move That Body, because it's not just making you feel better, but it's so much healthier for you in so many different ways.
And I really, though, I want to focus on that feel better. I'm still at that stage where I'm like blown away. I'm just blown away how much better I feel.
And you're past that pain because, when you're working those muscles,
No.
you have that. No, you're not past that.
But the good news is because I started at the lower weights, it's more bearable.
Yes.
But I'm shocked. Like the 2 days later, I'm like, well, you've been laughing at me the last week. And I'm coming up the stairs going, oh.
Yeah.
I still feel better.
Excellent. Yeah. Because your muscles feel tighter and they feel stronger, even though it hurts a little bit.
So people start slow, build up, but get that amazing feeling you get from strength training. There's a thought. Popped up while running. Not too long ago, I did a biking pop-up about how it's chill. How biking to and from work, commuting to work on the bike, starts my day off well and ends my day well. Puts me in a good frame of mind for work, helps me transition to home after work. So there's another thing I love about biking, and this is something else I was thinking of. I feel like a kid. When I was a kid, I lived in a neighborhood that was probably a couple kilometers away from most of my friends. There was a few kids close to my house and we played often, but there was another group of friends we wanted to play with and they were a couple kilometers away. And it was also a somewhat busy road at a certain spot that's okay for biking, but not so much for walking. Anyway, so I just remember when I finally got my bike, and I remember exactly where I got it. I remember what it looked like. I remember getting it. That bike where I could travel more. Wow, I felt so free. All of a sudden, the whole world was open up to me. I could go visit my friends. I could bike a whole bunch of places. I even would bike to school sometimes, and that was quite a distance away. And so I think that stayed with me for my whole life, that feeling of freedom I associate with a bike. The other thing, too, was I learned how to fix it. I could fix a flat tire. I could oil the chain. I could clean things up. I could adjust things just slightly so it worked well. I didn't really need a mechanic or somebody else. Things have gotten a little more complicated over the years, but still, for the most part, I can mostly fix my own bike, just getting help once in a while on some of the bigger jobs. And so that was another thing that fed into that feeling of freedom. So I think now when I jump on my bike, my body is like connects biking to feeling free. You can go anywhere. You don't need anybody. It's amazing. And so I just love that feeling of freedom. And so that's what I was thinking about. I was driving home today. I realized I was feeling a bit like a kid. And I was thinking of all these thoughts as to why that might be. It's me. Am I?
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin.
And here we are with another Flipside edition with Elise Seifert and Stephen Seifert.
Hello again.
Hello. So today we were hoping to talk about how we do our meal planning at home.
Oh, yes. Meal planning. So I remember I moved up here. It's going to be 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, this month. And when I first came up, do you remember what meal planning was?
So I would come home from work and be like, what do I feel like throwing in the fridge or throwing on the stove? And then I'd look in my fridge and realize I don't have half the ingredients. So we'd have to go to the store to pick up those ingredients. And it was just a headache every day. It just felt like more work after you've worked all day.
Yes, that's what I recall as well. So I was teaching in the States at the time, and I was going to the grocery store basically every day to come up with what the meal was going to be for that day.
Yeah. And the problem for me, at least going to the grocery store, I don't know if you feel the same way, is that I'll go to the grocery store, let's say, to pick up a pepper because I need a pepper for whatever I'm making. And then I walk into the store and I see the beautiful display of baked goods or the ice cream aisle. And I think, oh, I'll just grab one of those. I'll just grab one of those. And I'd be spending a lot more money on things that I didn't really need at all.
Yeah, and that's sort of what happens when you are living single versus living as a couple or a family, right? There's just that expectation where I don't have to worry about another person. As long as I've got what I need, it's fine. Mm-hmm. I can deal with it.
Totally. But together, we found that didn't work out.
Oh, it wasn't working out at all. I remember being very frustrated. And I said, Elise, there's going to be another way. We need to change this.
Yes.
So I suggested that we get an erasable calendar, and we started writing out what the meals were going to be for that week.
Mm-hmm. And it was a game changer.
It absolutely changed it, because one thing it did is it allowed us to just grocery shop once a week. And occasionally we'll forget something and we have to go to get something else. But once a week shopping not only reduces the amount of time you have to go to the grocery store, but also the headache.
That's right. Yes. Because you have to get in the car, drive to the store, get the cart, go find the items, the checkout. It's really a lot of time. And I know when gas prices had first increased here in Ontario, something they suggested was doing once a week grocery trips, because that would help to limit the amount of gas you use, even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah, so we were being a little bit more ecologically friendly. One other thing that it really changed for me is there are those days where you are finished with working and you just come home and say, I don't want to cook tonight. But knowing that you've got something planned, you say, okay, I'm going to do this. Yep. I can do this because I've already got the ingredients. Let's knock it out.
Mm-hmm. And I find our meal planning process doesn't really take that long. We have a good amount of recipes that we have kind of saved up now, and we go through our rotations. So because we have the month-long calendar, we can see, okay, what did we do 2 weeks ago? We can pretty much repeat that and do the same recipes.
Yeah, and we have it based on seasons, basically. So what we make in the spring is not going to be the same thing that we make in the fall, or summer is going to be very different than winter. So we have probably around 40 recipes or so that we do, and we rotate those based on the seasons.
That's right. And another thing I find it helps us with is our pantry. So how our process works is we go through our meals for the week, and then we go through each meal and we make the list for our grocery shopping list. So as we're going through the materials that we would need for each meal, we look in our cupboards to see, okay, what do we already have and what do we need? Versus maybe going to the store and knowing what you're going to make. And let's say, for example, you want to make butter chicken. That's one of our staples. We love it. So you're at the store, you know you want to make butter chicken. You see the butter chicken sauce there and you're like, I'm just going to buy it. I'm not sure if I have any. And then you go home and realize, oh, I already have 3.
And I never look at that as a bad thing. I think it's better to have it in extra than to realize I don't have that.
That's true. The shock of going in and saying, oh no, we don't have this. That's pretty terrible.
So meal planning doesn't have to be a complicated process. You can keep it simple and just find out what works for you.
Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way. It's time to wrap up the episode. It is sign-off time, and I'm here with Sheila and Elise.
Hi.
Hello.
On my theme of getting ready for my September 17th run, I'm doing the Canada Army run. I'm doing something called the Commander's Challenge, where I do a 5K first, and then I head over to the half marathon start and do a half marathon. That's 21.1K. So this past week, I've built up to 19 kilometers. And just like the week before, I wasn't sure how it would go. I haven't run that far since last October, so a little bit nervous. But again, the same thing. I went out. The weight training has been really paying dividends. My legs feel strong all the way till the end. So it was a great run and I felt really good about it. I'm having some fun making some reels, which was Elisa's idea. She said if you make some Instagram reels, you might get a few more hits. This is our second week in a row where we just did a little quick reel to say, listen to our next episode. So that's been fun. Yesterday was Sunday, and out of the blue, Jay and Marnie called and asked if we wanted to head over to Stratford because they were going. We had a great trip. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for that. And I have a really busy work schedule coming up in September and October. So I'm trying not to think about that. But at the end of the day, I got to put my head down and work my way through it. What's up with you, Sheila?
I have a few things I'd like to comment on last week's episode. Elise and John talked about ways to survive without air conditioning. I think that's kind of what it was about. Ways to keep cooler. Ways to keep cooler. And even with air conditioning, I think there are some really good suggestions. I was really surprised about the drinking water. I didn't really think that kept you cool. So that was really interesting to me. And keeping your curtains closed makes sense, but I didn't think about it. So now I'm keeping the curtains closed in the bedroom.
Are you noticing a difference?
Maybe, but hard to know.
It hasn't been that hot.
I feel like it has been. It is off and on hot. So I thought that was interesting. I'd like to do a shout out to Amy Flanagan. She took me on Thursday to this U-Pick flower farm, and it is called Feather Lane Farms and Events. So you can look it up on Instagram. That's their at Feather Lane Farms and Events. We went there. It's kind of in between Kitchener and Stratford country area. And it was so beautiful. It was so much fun to go. And it was just so quaint and beautiful. So a shout out to thank you so much for taking me. And it only cost $15 for this beautiful bouquet of flowers.
Yeah, you pick your own flowers.
Yeah, so cool. And then on Friday, I went to Elora. I went to the Elora Distillery. And that was amazing. So if anyone's going to Elora or going through, you should stop and check out the distillery there. I really enjoyed that as well. So that's something that I was doing this week. I'd like to wish my sister Anne-Marie a happy birthday, and I'll pass it off to Elise. What's up with you, Elise?
I've had a really fun social week this past week, actually. So I got to hang out with one of my coworkers, and we were in Southampton just one of the cutest beachside towns ever.
Yeah.
So we had a nice bike ride around there. It was great. And then on Saturday, I headed down to Kitchener and I got to meet up with some of my high school friends. So that was really fun. And
Very
then
nice.
today, which is Monday, I actually went hiking with a university friend. She's staying at a cottage close by. So we met up and we did a nice 10K hike around Lion's Head. It's a beautiful area. My legs are a little sore. I think I'm going to be sore tomorrow.
That
But
is
it's
great.
10K, that's nothing.
Nothing. I know. Nothing to you. But it was beautiful. I just am always amazed at the water on Georgian Bay. It's just so blue and beautiful. And then this week, I'm hoping to get a few swims in. I feel like it's been kind of a cool August and I haven't been able to go swimming in Lake Huron or Georgian Bay as much. So I'm just going to do it. Even if it's cold, I'm going to go.
Excellent.
You
do
can
that.
do it.
You can do it.
Well, that's great. It looks like lots of great stuff happening and coming up. And keep doing your wellness check-ins. Keep listening to the podcast, and we'll see you guys next week.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.